أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to our fourth session on thinking it through, looking at aqaid, specifically Qiyamah, and today we are looking at Barzakh. And we are doing this in honor of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whose shahadat we will be commemorating inshallah tomorrow. So what is Barzakh? The definition of Barzakh is a boundary which separates two things. It is actually the intermediate realm which separates the temporary life of this world from the eternal life of the hereafter. It's the first stage which is reached once we leave this world, and we stay there till the day of judgment, where we then will continue our journey. The body housing the spirit in Barzakh is not made of a physical matter as it is in this world, and it is made of an imaginal matter, and it like in a dream, when you can move and see things in a single instant. The absence of time and space in Barzakh allows more freedom. In fact, Mullah Sadra actually put this really beautifully. He says, in this corporal world, the soul flourishes through the body, and in the next world, it transfers the habits it has formed to create and give shape to the body that it will occupy there. The imaginal body will be beautiful or ugly depending on the nature of the soul. So it's the world of images. It's an imaginal world. It's called A'lam al-Mithal, where what is found there is an image of this world, but without body or matter. And it's not like an image in the mirror. It's more expansive. Its existence is whose existence and capability and life force is much more powerful than the object itself. So the color, the smell, the taste, and every other sensation that we experience here exists there, except that they're not limited by the restriction of matter, and so they're consequently stronger and more vital and more beautiful. So there's much more freedom and much more movement there. And an individual will find every action that they have ever done, imprinted on the soul, and see its embodiment externally as well. And again, here we from Surah Zalzala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. Then anyone who has done an atom's worth of good shall see it. وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. And anyone who has done an atom's worth of evil shall see it. So we'll actually see it within the body. Let's look at Barzakh in a little bit more detail. So Judgment Day is an event that happens for everyone and everything in the entire world. It transforms the entire world into a new form of existence. But until Judgment Day happens, our book of deeds remains open. So we can't be judged on everything that we've done, because we may still be reaping its reward or punishment, dependent on what the deed is. So we need to be in this intermediate realm, the Barzakh, until the Day of Judgment. Now, the first thing that happens when we die is we enter this realm of Barzakh. It happens very soon after death. So the angel of death is actually charged with two responsibilities. The first one is to detach the soul from the material body, and then the second one is to settle the soul into the imaginal body of Barzakh. Now, the relationship between the soul and the material body is so deep and so strong that to separate them is very, very difficult and a very painful process. The imaginal body is a semblance of the material body, but in a non-corporeal form, just as the immaterial world is composed of sights and sounds of non-corporeal nature. And although it looks like the material body, it starts taking on the facets of the deeds, the physical form of the deeds that we have done in this world to a certain extent. Now, although the soul is now put into this new body, it still retains a strong empathy and bond with its former material body. And this is probably why we're told to handle the body with, gently, with a lot of sort of to be very, very careful with the body, not because the body actually feels anything, because obviously there are no pain receptors there anymore. The body doesn't feel any pain, but it's because of this affinity that the soul has with this material body, and it follows the material body everywhere, and it's not understanding exactly what's going on, and it feels the pain if the body has been mistreated in any way whatsoever. So if we look at the burial, now this is probably the most difficult experience of the soul as it enters Barzakh, because it's the most terrifying time when the body is lowered into the ground, because the soul still mistakenly imagines it's still inside the body and identifies completely with whatever is being done to the body. So it feels it's being buried alive, and it experiences choking and crushing, and it's very, very scared. Then we go on to the squeezing, when the body is actually covered with the earth, and it doesn't cover the person as the actual person, because the soul is in a different body. But because the body, the soul is connected to the material body, it has this empathy towards the material body. It feels like it is connected. It's been covered as well, but it's actually living in another dimension already. Now the soul experiences a squeezing. How this is done, we don't know, but and the intensity of it is dependent on the purification that the soul requires, and everyone goes through this squeezing. And for some, the squeezing is like a hug, a loving hug, and for some it is painful, but a pain that is a good kind of pain. Whereas with some, the pain is so intense, and it really does very little, because the soul has been so corrupted. So an example here would be of a muscle which has been pulled, and when you've done some sort of exercise, and then you have massaging done on that muscle, and it you feel pain, but it's a good kind of pain, uh, compared to a massage which has been done on a broken bone, for example. So if the soul has been corrupted so badly, then the squeezing will not be able to purify it. Once the squeezing is over, then there's this the soul is left alone, and it has this deep sense of isolation and loneliness, where it's no longer aware of the material world, or the angels, or the dead in the other graves, and it's actually just in the grave, and it's unfamiliar, and it's frightened, and it doesn't know how long it's going to be there, and it doesn't know what's going to happen next. So it's a very intense loneliness. And then Ruman comes, the angel who reminds. Now, when he comes to remind us of everything we've done, and the spiritual memory is not dependent on the body or the brain, because everything that was on the brain has gone. This is actually embedded in the soul, so it remains even after death. And when Rahman comes, he introduces himself, and in one language which is innate, the innate language of the soul, which is more to do with the exchange of thoughts rather than words and phrases. And Rahman actually activates the spiritual memory, and then he asks the person to start writing down every deed that they ever did. And when they do this, they start reliving these every moment of their past life. But it's before, when they saw it in a three-dimensional way, now they're actually seeing it and reliving it in its multi-dimensional aspect. So they're reliving every layer of that act, the thoughts, the intention behind it, the emotions that were there. Everything is relived and written down, and then it's transferred into this book, which then Rahman hangs onto the neck of the person. And he hangs this book, and this book becomes part of the person now. And Rahman informs the person that this is your book of existence, and shall remain closed inside you until the day God brings mankind forth from their graves, and then the book will be opened. And again, this is mentioned in Surah A'raf, in Surah number 7, verse 13, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, وَكُلَّ إِنسَانٍ أَلْزَمْنَاهُ طَائِرَهُ فِي أُنُقِهِ. And we have made every man's actions to cling to his neck. وَنُخْرِجُ لَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ كِتَابًا يَلْقَاهُ مَنْشُورًا. And we will bring forth to him on the resurrection day a book which he will find wide open. So this book will remain with the person, but it will actually be part of the soul of this person, and it will start changing the look of the person, because the deeds will have an effect on the body of the new body of this soul that houses this soul, and it will remain closed until the day of judgment. Then will happen the Ruman will leave, and again there will be a loneliness, but this loneliness will now be different, because those who were given the book of good deeds, they will feel a sense of peace, and they will be comforted by a company or a presence, or a good presence, a very peaceful presence, which is the embodiment of their deeds. And those obviously who had done evil deeds will have a lot of torment and anguish, and then there will be the questioning that happens. Now, the questioning will happen. What will happen after the book of deeds is been given? That it will be put into three different groups. So the first group will be those who are purified, who have lots of good deeds, and they're of the pure ones, and they will be questioned. And then there will be a second group who are neither purified nor impurified. They've done good and bad deeds. They're in the middle group. And then there'll be a third group, which were the impure ones, the ones who've done a lot of bad deeds, a lot of evil deeds, and their souls have been really, really corrupted. Now, the second group will not be questioned. It will only be those who are really pure and those who are really impure that will be questioned. And they will be questioned by angels, and these angels will be different dependent on the soul. So for the pure ones, they will be Bashir and Mubashir, so the ones who bring good news. Whereas for the evil ones, they will be Munkar and Nakir, the ones who are ugly and really, really not nice. And they will be questioned, questions like, who is your Lord, and what is your book, and so forth. And the first group will be able to answer them, and they will be then sent to the Barzakhi heaven. And the third group will not be able to answer them, and they will be sent to the Barzakhi hell. And in fact, the third group will try to justify their actions and lie, and they will get lashings with whips of fire immediately. So they on that day you can't lie. But the second group, which will be a lot of the people, will not be questioned, because their nature is not yet crystallized into sort of being able to answer the questions, and therefore they will have a limited life in Barzakh, where they will have an essence of either the heaven or the Barzakhi heaven, or an essence of the Barzakhi hell, dependent on whether they have more good deeds or bad deeds, and they will be constantly being helped by the angels to try to better themselves and to pay off whatever impurities that they can to purify themselves. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that only the exemplar believers and the absolute disbelievers are questioned in the grave. All others are left alone. And after the questioning, the ones that pass the questioning will go into Barzakhi heaven, and those that don't pass will go to Barzakhi hell. And the Holy Prophet has said that the grave is either a garden from the gardens of paradise or a pit from the pits of hellfire. We pray to Allah that we end up in the garden from the gardens of paradise, inshallah. Please join me tomorrow for my final talk on this series on thinking it through, looking at Qiyamah. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.